All right, everybody. Today we're going to ask the question, to cut or not to cut. I brought in a small selection of some cutting tools today, and what we're going to discuss is primarily, if you're out in the field, do I want to cut, or trailblaze is another way of putting it. As you can see behind me here, there's a lot of scrub. We have briars, which are usually pretty rough getting through without a cutting tool. And we also have the wild Russian olive tree, which out here we colloquially will call the olive. It has thorns. It's quite nasty and hard to get through. So now the question is, what are you going to be doing? Or are we going out into the field just to practice skills? Is one or more of these tools going to be a part of a bug out bag or get home bag? Or are we just doing homesteading, just clearing the land? And depending on what it is you want to do with said tool will deciding factor which one we want to choose. Now, there's pretty good selection here. The larger brush axe is fantastic for clearing this combination of brush, briars, and thorn trees that we got. However, it's large, it's heavy, and it'll tire you out before too long. Now, there's a little bit of debate. Some people, say axe, hatchet, machete. I personally believe that we should select that tool based upon our environment, the region in which we live, and your season. Now, we're getting out into the fall here, and before too much longer, it will be winter. And in this area, an axe probably suits you quite good in the winter conditions in case you have to process larger diameter trees for fire and shelter. However, there's a compromise, and I will show you the one that I've chosen for my compromise. And for me, that is the parang. This is a lighter weight parang, no fancy name brand, got off Amazon, I believe Wild Turkey, handmade collection they claim. I've tested it a good little bit. It does cut well. It'll cut smaller whippy briars, and it'll cut just about as good as a small hatchet. And it's decently light, weighing roughly barely in just a hair over a pound with the sheath. And that's why I like this. It's not too heavy. It's got a good bounce when you carry it on your waist in the sheath, due to it being not so top heavy like a hatchet. So, personal preference, I understand. I'm not trying to tell anybody this is the way it's got to be done. I'm just saying that this is what I've chose based on my experience in the terrain which I live in. Now then, we have the larger one. This is the Condor Bushcraft parang. Pretty decent blade. It's a little bit heavier, and whereas a handle is a good handle, it's not near as comfortable as the first one I showed you. However, can't go wrong with this tool either. It's quite a good tool. It's a bit heavier, so it'll actually chop larger material and harder material better. Now, if by chance you're dealing primarily with vines, briars, high grass, this may be a consideration. This has no brand name on it. I got it clear back in 2007 at a little store in town there, a little hardware store, made in Colombia. Quite a fine machete, very, very springy. You put a razor edge on it and it holds it quite well, and it's been loaned out and damaged multiple times. I've fixed the edge on it to where it's serviceable again. This is a fantastic machete, and at the time I only paid $13 for it. Now if you're in very high grass with this thin profile, and it does have a bit of a taper to it, it cuts very well for light, soft vegetation. Tramontina machete 18-inch may be probably your best bet in general to carry, especially if you're packing it or carrying it on your side. Let's go with something a little bit on the smaller side. Speaking of Tramontina, this is the Tramontina 12-inch machete. It is actually quite enjoyable to carry, very, very, very light, and it does cut quite well. Now, mind you, it's not great against larger, harder vegetation by any stretch of the imagination, but it does. If you're patient with it, it'll do the job. It's light, so it's easy to carry, and I'm more apt to carry, like we discussed in my first video, lighter, less bulky items. So, not a bad option. And if you would notice the odd coloring, there's a little story behind that coloration on the blade. An area which I'm standing behind was once pretty well brush filled, and we cleared this out, and we had a brush fire going to burn the brush. Well, you get a little tired and you stop paying attention to stuff. Well, this little guy actually ended up underneath the brush fire for maybe a couple minutes, 3-4 at the most. And I took my tractor with the loader bucket, flipped up and over the brush fire we were doing, and pulled it out. I dunked it in the creek that was right beside the brush fire. And fortunately, it managed to keep a spring steel temper, which is primarily that coloration you're seeing through here, and a little bit of wheat color there. And it actually, well, it saved the machete. It still functions just perfectly. Now, hatchets. Me and a friend of mine had not too long ago discussed hatchets, and I have some nice ones. This is a Husqvarna. Pretty light. I wouldn't mind carrying this one. It's got very good steel. Good quality hatchet. Nice handle. Perfect grain alignment. The blade edge, cutting edge, is in line with the handle. That's one thing you definitely want to look for in your hatchets. Let's bring that in closer for you. Now, if you notice that alignment in the grain going up and down, that's pretty important for an axe or hatchet with a wooden handle. That helps keep the energy of the blows from causing damage to the wood. Now look down, if I can get her lined up for you. You want your cutting edge in line with that handle as much as possible, and that really increases the accuracy of your strikes when you're striking with an axe or a hatchet. Now, if this blade is off to one side or the other, you're not going to get a true strike when you come down on whatever material you're trying to cut, and it can cause glances, especially if you know you're just getting with her and you're really wanting to get something done and you're putting a lot of power into it, cutting some hardwood. That's dangerous, because typically a lot of people assume or think or just bad information. They've been told that, axes and hatchets, you don't have to have them that sharp. Well, you find any true woodsman and ask him how sharp he keeps his machetes, axes, brush axes, and he'll tell you you can shave with them. And they're supposed to be that sharp. That's so the tool can do most of the work and you don't have to go wailing on stuff. Because once we get tired, your body's reflexes, your accuracy, just your eye-hand coordination does suffer. So we'll add a survivor scenario to that. Now you're out somewhere and something's happened. You've got stranded, and you may not know where you're at or how to go anywhere. So usually they say, stay with the vehicle. So, hey, you did that, but you don't have no gas much in your vehicle and you're getting cold. So what do? Well, I was smart enough to bring me an axe or hatchet. I'm going to start a fire, and say you're stuck there for a couple of days. Now you're not going to have much to eat, much to drink, even if some people don't even think to bring anything. So what are you going to do? Well, I can make a fire. I got a lighter, I got a hatchet or an axe. After a while, you're going to get tired. Accidents happen when we get tired. So to properly maintain all your tools, doesn't even matter if you're in a survival situation. If you're out here with that big brush axe, clearing this behind me back here, which would be quite a taxing job without modern tools like a chainsaw. You slip up with a big tool like that brush axe and you put that into your shin, better hope you got a tourniquet with you or something you can improvise a tourniquet with, because like all these cutting tools you see over here on these pieces of wood, every one of them sharp enough to shave with. And if you make a boo-boo with these tools, you're in trouble. You're hurting. Now, like I said, I'm not too big on branding and stuff. My experience is strictly limited to what I've got and what I've purchased myself. So, I can recommend a classic. Highly recommend, actually. There's multiple handle types. The old S-swing camp hatchets. Pretty well bomb-proof. Can't really go wrong with these. They're great. Not super heavy. They will take a decent edge. They don't hold an edge quite as well as like a premium axe, but carry a file with you or whatever sharpening implements you choose to keep your tool sharp with. And I can say a lot of good things about them. I'm not going to go on and on and on. We don't need that. I have several S-wing axes and hatchets. No, I did not bring all of the tools that I got. That would be a little ridiculous. Now then, the old trusty Tomahawk. Now, if you're going to ask me, say we're in a bad situation, what would I choose if I only had one axe or hatchet? Surprisingly, it may surprise you, I'm going with the Tomahawk. And I can sum it up quite easily. See that? That is how this hatchet head is affixed to the shaft. And it don't take much to pop it off there. Now I have a hand tool. Got a decent hammer. Hulu shaped blade if I'm holding it like this for fleshing skin. I can use this alone to make this out of any hardwood branch off the side of a tree. And that to me is why this would be my choice. It's just that easy. I can make a handle for this thing in, like, if I'm not picky about carving anything, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, handle. And that's important if you're on the go. Now this came with a 19-inch hickory hardwood handle. As you can see, just it's not coming off there. Just that friction alone holds that pretty good. Now while you're using it, obviously as you're swinging the head, all the weight's coming towards the bulb end right here. It's not coming off. Actually, it'll tighten it up a little bit. You may have to give her a real good whap to get the head back off. So that's my choice for an axe or a hatchet. Now, what I will primarily be using is this little guy. Now this is going to be my primary if I'm going out the door. I know I'm going out in the woods and I may need to cut through some brush, briars, brambles, or these horrendous olive olives. Because of its weight, I got a nice long blade. Now I can use this for more applications. It's got a draw knife, no problem. It has a decently rough, sharp 90-degree spine on it. It will strike rods. And whereas I do lose hammering ability like I would have with the back of the hatchet, axe, or tomahawk. However, I know how to make a batten or a maul. So as long as you get some of your skills lined out that are going to benefit you out in the woods, that's why you carry a lot of tools if you have to take your gear. That way you can make stuff that you may not be able to take with you. And bear with me, I will grab a piece of wood here and I will give you a little cut demonstration with this guy. So just give me a minute and I'll be right. All right, everyone. I got here is a piece of oak. Was just going to grab a random branch, but wanted something a little tougher to show you guys. This is North American red oak. Very hard. This would be a far better test than just, a branch like that, about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. So we's gonna choppy this bad boy. All right, just some general safety practices here. Understand the arc of your swing, right? Make sure as far as you can reach in the position you're cutting, there's nothing in this area that's going to get hurt. Now, hurt myself, that's my fault. Just don't want to damage property or other people. So, hand up here, away from the blade where I want to be cutting. Now, it's highly important to try to keep from injuring yourself, especially if you are in a survival situation. So, without further ado, we'll begin. Now, as you can see, I am not swinging this thing very hard because the way I'm cutting, that's dangerous. If I lose control of this blade and I sharpen it myself, yeah, I'm going to the ER if this bad boy gets me. Now the blade's doing most of the work here. And we're not too far from being through this piece of oak. There we go. Not bad, right? So, will it split? You know what? I've not tried to split wood with it yet. Let's find out together. We'll bring her back here where you can see her good, hopefully. Not bad. That was quite a light strike. Mind you, this thing ain't no split maul. It is not made for that. But we'll do it in a pinch. Let's get us a batten. And the answer is yes. Yes, it will. Sorry about that. I lost you guys there. Knocked the camera over. Now then, admittedly, that's easier to split than a round. You know what I mean? So, see how much she carves. And again, this is a piece of red oak. Not too bad. Let's see if she'll make us some shavings here. Let's get you a little up close so you can see them. Got some right there coming. Probably going to fall off on me. Don't have a very good stable platform to do this on. You can see. Now she'll shave oak. She'll shave softwoods like pine and poplar quite easy. Not bad. So I can do the chores of a big knife with this thing, which kind of is a big knife. I mean, it's classified as a machete. This is 1075 steel, decent carbon content. Does have a little bit of spring, not a lot, but that's just a parang. That's typically how they're made, and that also helps you cut harder wood, not having too much spring. It'll do a little better for you in that regards. Now then, if I can keep from knocking you guys over again. Ideas I toyed with, and I'm still, now when I say that, don't get me wrong, I am still debating. I want to bring over a very small cross section here. Very light, very sharp, very thin. This would fall under the category of better than nothing. Now, the reason I got these little toys here was I wanted to try them because they went along very well with my light, easy to carry way I like to do things. Now that little guy is from Camillus. Actually, I'll just grab this because it's another Camillus, and it's not bad, this one here. This would definitely be more of a knife, a machete. Not very thick, but it was said to be a machete on the packaging. Now, you can tell from the ugly blade, I've actually used it quite a bit, and it does form decent. So, if you can still find this, it's not expensive. Not a bad thing to have. I've battened it, I've beat it, I've thrown it, I've cut big stuff with it, small stuff. It'll do whippy briars, especially do that beautiful little recurve there. Not my favorite type of blade shape. That's personal preference. If you love it, more power to you. I have not a bit of problem with that. Like I said, I like the blade. It is harder to sharpen, but I do believe this was a Walmart purchase, had paracord on it, and I took it off the handle. So I was playing with the idea of putting handle slabs on it. Never happened. I like the shape of the cutting edge. Very cheap. I think this thing was like $8-10. Ironically enough, it actually holds an edge decent. You wouldn't have thought. I don't even know if they sell these anymore. I've seen them in different name brands, the same gimmick. And again, it was along that lines of, man, this is light and small. It's not great. You're not building a cabin with it, but it is a chopping tool. Now, I will quickly explain my disdain for cutouts. Don't like cutouts. I don't care if it's a expensive fancy blade or a cheap blade. I don't like cutouts. You weaken the steel. I get it. It's for lightening, they claim. You lighten the stuff up. Plus, this is supposed to be wrenches. Could you see trying to get that in somewhere and, that blade and this big, nah. Yeah, gut hook. Now, like I said, this thing's been chopped up all to hell when you've weakened so much of this steel. I mean, the maximum strength you're getting is just this little section right here. I mean, you've lost too much of these are my opinions. I mean, no one has to agree with them. That's just my way I look at things. And no, I'm not, obviously a brand new channel. I'm not sponsored here, so name brands are irrelevant. I'm just bringing you some stuff that I've had experience with. Now this little guy, it's a Gerber. I do believe I purchased this maybe at Rural King. Decent cutting edge. The width of it is not bad. The weight is pretty decent. The handle is actually very comfortable. And it cuts decent. I mean, now, again, realistically, you're not building a log cabin, okay? I mean, you can only do so much with such a light, small cutting tool, but it can hammer a little bit, very thin. But the idea of this thing is to help you process small firewood, I think, just small shelter building. You're dealing with inch and a half. 2 inches is usually all you really need anyway. So this will actually do the job. So as far as me saying I can recommend something, that ain't bad. It is a little pricey. I do believe they're somewhere in the neighborhood of $40-50 now. But if that's not too much money for you, that S-Wing, classic S-Wing leather stack handled camp hatchet you can see right there in the foreground, that's about $40-45, maybe 50 on the high end, depending on where you live. So, carrying options is important too. Now, the sheath for this thing is garbage. If you had to carry it, you had to, and you didn't have a sheath made after the fact, I'm digging around for that sheath now to show you. Yeah. Yeah, Cordura, nylon, whatever the heck it is. I'll tell you what it is, it's garbage. But in lieu of forming some PVC plastic, if you know how to do that, to make your own sheath for it, a little bit better carry option. And that's important for a tool, by the way, because a lot of times you have a nice tool and you won't carry it because your carrying option's garbage. Now then, I am literally going to pick you guys up to give you a small little tour of the surrounding area here. Now I want to show you some of this vegetation. There we go. Flipped you around here. Sorry for the shaky cam, guys. I'm using my cell phone to record this. Actually, let's get us one we haven't gotten a hold of yet. I'm not totally pooping on brush hooks, brush axes. I'm going to grab this fixed screws because I've used this quite a bit. And like I said, not getting paid for sponsorship, but you can't go wrong with this tool. It's quite useful, very light. Now then, in case some of you, if you're local here watching this video, you know what this is. That was a rabbit. All right, this monstrosity, that's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 9-10 feet tall, which makes it a small one, is a nice bundle of multiflora rose briar bush. Now, I want you to try to imagine forcing your body through that. Yeah. And we have a lot of them out here in my country. Now it's getting on in the years. These are drying up, getting brittle. We still got quite a bit of life left in these. So, brush hook. Nice clean cut. Just real gentle sweep. Now mind you, that's important to keeping your tool sharp. Now if your tool's not sharp, these are, you know, if you're say you're walking through the brush, you have no choice. Now we'll get back to cut or not to cut. Do I have to cut my way through that nightmare? Now typically these are on the edges of the forest around here. We got a lot of fields, open fields in this areas as well. And if they're not maintained, you get a lot of the Russian olive olives in it. Now outside that, you're dealing mostly with a combination. Now this is the wild Russian olive tree with its massive thorns, and it is intermingled with the briars. That's nightmare right there, guys. And I've seen large swaths, dozens and dozens of acres that is just plumb filled with this stuff, and this is a small one. They can get somewhere a nice little canopy about 20-30 feet high and about 5 to 10 inches diameter at the bottom on the base. Now here is a nice example of some olive Russian wild olive tree. And believe it or not, this stuff is actually hard to cut. I am no stranger to cutting. I've spent most of my life doing this kind of thing. Well, poor farmer boy from West Virginia. And I know how to use a machete, axe, and a brush hook quite well. This stuff, when you're hitting into it at a 45-degree angle, once you get down into it, it, some reason, deflects. And it happens quite often when you get in some of the larger diameter stuff. Now again, this ain't the best tool for this job. This is pretty good sized diameter stuff. It's not great for this. However, it will work. And the smaller stuff especially. So, not a problem. You can cut that out quite easily. There we go. That's what I mean. That split. Now you can look at that's a decent angle on that cut. On the back side of that cut, see that sheared off and splintered out? That does that a lot. And if you're not careful, you know, like you said, you're going gung-ho with this, especially if you're swinging down here, you know, near your legs, you're coming down, you know, and that thing splinters out and shears off, and so you got a more of a Latin shaped blade, which would be closer if you're holding it this way, and that comes out of there. You got to watch that trajectory. Where's that blade going? So that's why you want to hold at angles to make sure that a glance is not going to strike yourself anywhere. Timber. And of course that's got grapevines all in it. Now then, let's run through a common sense scenario here. What am I going to use my cutting tool for? What's the job that I need to accomplish. Is this part of my homesteading responsibilities? Or am I in a survival situation? You know, brown stuff hits the fan, without rule of law, all those fancy acronyms that we use for chaos. Now, my opinion, don't go through stuff like this if you don't have to. I don't think it's a good idea. You'll wear yourself out, burn lots of calories, dehydrate yourself. Like I said, now, not all the forest out here is near this bad. No, this is just your open spots before you actually get proper into the woods, and this goes away quite a bit. But if you have to travel through it, you can see a deer path right along the edge of this creek bank. Now, instead of coming out here, I'm not going to cut down all of this thing. Don't need to. At most, we'll come through, just clear enough of this to walk through. I mean, actually, I could do that right now. There's nothing sharp right there. I got plenty of room. Skirt around it. You don't have to go through it, go around it. Yeah, little greenbrier. Now, these little guys are kind of whippy and they're hard to cut, which gives you the advantage if you are using the brush hook. There you go. He catches it and swipes it. Now, it's the same thing. This guy here is quite low. I can walk around him. No point in swinging at him. Now, this is a big difference if you're, you know, the world's doing decent. You're at your home. You're just practicing your skills, which I highly recommend you do. And I recommend you do that near your home. Let other people know where you're going, what you're doing. Bring some basic metal supplies, tourniquets, because you're going to be using sharp implements. And I highly recommend, in doing that, you take responsibility for your well-being. You don't have to go out there and put yourself in a dangerous situation to practice your skills. That's how bad things happen. Until you get several years of this under your belt, you know, there's nothing embarrassing about being safe. Because bad things can happen in a very fast order when you're dealing with tools and knives and any other implement designed for cutting. All right, let's get you back up here on the mount and we'll sum up the video. Okay, well, what did we learn today? Guess it depends on what you got out of it. Here's what I hope that you learned today. There's a very large variety of tools that we can use out in the field, at home, in a garden even. And I want people to have respect for those tools. They're dangerous. If you've had no experience growing up, try to track someone down who maybe can help you. And importantly, if you are practicing your bushcraft skills and you're new, maybe have somebody with you. Make sure that they stand a safe distance away from you. But if you're severely injured, it may do to have another human being there to assist you in a medical emergency, even if just to help tie off a severe cut, laceration, you know, maybe you hit an artery. And if you hit an artery, that's bad. You don't got much time. So I even recommend, if you can, take some basic first aid classes. Go to your Red Cross Center, get some training. It's ain't no joke. It'd be nice to enjoy bushcrafting, being a woodsman, without putting your life in mortal danger. So if you do get injured, you know, at the very least, you know how the basics to help yourself. If you don't have cell phone service in that area, walkie-talkies, handheld ham radios, I've got them. Good idea to keep them with and make sure that someone else has another one that can receive the transmission. You know, take precautions. I know everybody's situation is different, but respect these things. If you don't, they'll hurt you fast and they'll hurt you hard. But I don't want to discourage anybody from enjoying bushcrafting, being a woodsman, because once you learn to use these tools and be safe, it's a wonderful experience. So everybody, please take some time, go outside and enjoy the world. It's getting fall. This is one of my favorite time of years. I'm a big boy. I don't like the heat, people. So I'm pretty fond of fall. Fall, it's my favorite time of year. All right. With that, I'd like to thank you all for watching very kindly. Take care of yourselves. Get out in the woods and enjoy yourself. I'm new, so the more likes and people subscribing to the channel will actually help me out, and hopefully I can continue to keep doing this. So with that, I thank you all very much for your time. I know this video is going to be a bit longer than the previous one, but you know, I could go on for hours and hours, but nobody's got time for that. So with that, I'll see you all later in another video. Be safe.